The Super Mario Galaxy movie is a beautiful mess. At every turn, this movie was just shy of greatness. I'm not gonna lie, there were lots of times while watching this movie that I felt something, that I laughed, that I got chills. But when the fun died down and I exited the movie theater, I really had to ask myself, what did it have to offer? Let's go character by character through the Mario Galaxy movie, spoilers obviously, and examine what this movie did right and what it did wrong. Chapter 1. Rosalina. Of all the characters in the movie, I would say that the one that behaved the most opposite to what I expected was Rosalina. First off, she was barely in the movie. I mean, she had less screen time than Fox, and he's not even in this franchise. The reason that she was in so little of the movie is because her role was relegated to damsel in distress. We'll talk about that in a bit. And unlike in the first movie, where Luigi was the damsel in distress, and it actually focused at least a little bit on Luigi being intimidated and afraid of Bowser, and feeding a little bit into what one could consider a character arc of him learning to be braver, Rosalina's imprisonment basically amounts to, I am trying to escape but can't because of really strong plexiglass. It's funny, because in the first trailer that shows Rosalina destroying Megaleg, I, and many others, were concerned that she was going to be too overpowered of a being, and that she would make quick work of most of the enemies she goes up against, and be some kind of deus ex machina who saves the day when the heroes are at their lowest. But it turns out, that Megaleg fight from the trailer ends in her defeat, showing that while she is powerful, she is not all powerful. I thought that this was a good foundation for her character, as it did give her some level of depth and vulnerability. But then, other than one moment where she tries to escape again, later on before getting fully trapped, she does basically nothing in the movie. It's also strange that they had her be a damsel in distress at all, considering the first Super Mario movie went out of its way to not have Peach be a damsel in distress, instead making Luigi the one captured by Bowser. Which was in some ways a better choice because it gave Mario a more personal reason to go after Bowser and fed into Luigi overcoming his cowardice, but also wasn't a perfect choice because it separated Mario and Luigi for so much of the runtime. All this to say that I don't think in either movie a character being relegated to damsel in distress was really necessary. Look, I get it. The Super Mario game franchise is dominated by the damsel in distress trope. Usually it's Peach. One time it was the little fairy guys. But the damsel in distress trope works just fine in a video game because a video game is such a separate medium from a movie. Video games don't need character arcs because you, the player, are the one undergoing change, because you are being challenged to beat the game and are directly interacting with the world through the playable character. This is why I don't complain about Mario never undergoing a character arc in any of the games. Whereas in both the first movie and this movie, him lacking an arc is a fundamental, unacceptable problem. But we'll talk more about Mario later. The problem with a damsel in distress in the medium of film is that it now relegates a character who we otherwise would have wanted to see some kind of character arc for to an extremely narrow, literal box for a large portion of the runtime, giving them not only little opportunity to challenge their own perspectives, but also just doesn't give them too many lines. And you might be thinking that she had to be captured because the crux of the plot is that Bowser Jr. is trying to power some kind of Death Star weapon. And to that, I have two words for you: Grand Star. If you've never played the Super Mario Galaxy games, Grand Stars are the reward for defeating each of the major bosses. And in the first Galaxy game, power up the Comet Observatory. They're a textbook MacGuffin, an object of great power that bad guys steal and good guys steal back. The first Mario movie had Bowser steal a regular star. Odd how the Galaxy movie didn't just have Bowser Jr. defeat Rosalina and steal a Grand Star, giving him the same access to power that makes the Boomsday device threatening, but freeing up Rosalina to go on her own adventure and have her own character arc. This would have still worked well with the Peach-Rosalina relationship. So the big lore reveal is that Rosalina is actually Peach's long-lost sister, which is not a thing in any of the games as of now. I actually think that this reveal is about the best it could have been. I like it more than Rosalina being Peach's mother, or vice versa. A major part of Peach going on the journey she does is to find Rosalina, and this reveal of their familial relationship only makes that journey more meaningful. But whether Rosalina was kidnapped or whether she was on her own adventure, we still could have had Peach be looking for her. Rosalina being not kidnapped would have only served her having an arc more. But let's get into the major omission regarding this character, the lack of the mother backstory. It's kind of shocking that the main thing in the original Mario Galaxy game that could be considered a story, being the Rosalina storybook that details Rosalina's mother's death and her subsequent finding of the Lumas, is absent from the movie. Not only is it not explained why Rosalina even is the guardian of the Lumas, but she, and by extension Peach, don't even have a mother, with the narrative instead opting for some immaculate conception nonsense where they're like children of stardust or whatever. I hate tropes like this because they turn what were otherwise normal people who became great into people who were just born great. The story of Rosalina from the Galaxy games is one of a normal child born to human parents who lost said parents, and from there went on space adventures and found a new family in the Lumas. That communicates to a normal person that even though you might have faced hardship in your own life, you are still capable of having your own adventures and finding your own family. The Mario Galaxy movie is just like, nah, they have magic powers because they were born of stardust. Oh, you weren't born of stardust? Sucks to be you. I'll end this section on a fun criticism. The minionification of the Lumas. The Lumas weren't explicitly annoying in the movie, but I do disagree with their childish characterization. Look, Lumas are cute already, just in their design. You don't have to overcompensate by making them so childlike. And it also undermines the mysterious nature of the Lumas, and just doesn't really add that much to them. And I know what you can argue against this. Well, the minionified Lumas aren't for you. They're to make the kids laugh. Okay, well, I was in a pretty packed theater, and I didn't hear the kids laugh once at these generic Luma act like kid jokes. You know what got the biggest laugh from the kids in my theater? The part where Luigi was singing That's Amore while talking about how Mario is a thing for Princess Peach. Alright, kids are smarter than you think they are. They don't need dumbed down Lumas. If anything, the minionified Lumas were more there to make the parents laugh, since the Lumas act like obnoxious kids, so it's much more likely that a parent of young kids would find them funny, as opposed to a kid actually finding them funny. But really, the Lumas are just not supposed to be like this. What the Lumas are in the Mario Galaxy games is so much more well-written. In the Rosalina storybook, you know, that thing the movie completely ignored, the Lumas are quite childish, yes, but they're portrayed more as naive than obnoxious. They have moments of not understanding why Rosalina is sad, and moments where they get excited about the prospects of building the observatory. They're meant to contrast the more melancholic Rosalina with their much more sanguine sense of sunny optimism. This is a dynamic that would have fit perfectly into a movie, but instead we get blank slate magical princess contrasted against a bunch of minions that look like stars. And what makes this all so much worse is that this was really the only chance to do anything with these characters. I mean, it's the Mario Galaxy movie. Sure, maybe Rosalina and the Lumas will be in the next movie, but are they gonna be prominent? Probably not. This was the time to focus on Rosalina and give her something meaningful to do in this film franchise, and they just blew it. Chapter 2, Yoshi and Toad. So I'm grouping Toad into this section too, but I mostly want to talk about Yoshi and how he didn't really contribute all that much to the movie at all. I actually really liked Yoshi's introduction. The whole sequence of Yoshi in New York was a great way to set up the character. He's a little troublemaker, but at the same time, he's the embodiment of innocence. Perfect for Yoshi. But I don't feel like the writers behind the movie really understood how to properly communicate the thoughts and feelings of a non-speaking character like Yoshi to the audience, and instead just kinda had him be there. The most Yoshi really does in this movie is have a little bit of a conflict with Toad, whose whole thing is like, why is there a green dinosaur suddenly following us around? The conflict between these two characters comes to a head during the sequence of the movie where Mario and Luigi get turned into babies by Bowser Jr., and they get attacked by the Mario Odyssey T-Rex. There's a part where Toad carefully secures the baby safely away from the sleeping dinosaur, only for Yoshi to show up and celebrate about retrieving the Babyfy gun, which causes the dinosaur to wake up and leads to a chase sequence. I felt like this part almost addressed Yoshi's established character flaw, him being a bit too reckless and oblivious, as he not only caused the chase, but also seemed to feel genuinely bad when he thought he failed to protect his friends. But I think in order to drive that home, there needed to be some sort of communication that he felt that way. and some sort of verbal acknowledgement that that was a flaw that Yoshi needed to learn to overcome, as well as a moment later on in the movie where Yoshi approaches a problem differently to show that he changed. I think the way Yoshi was handled in this movie has brought me to the conclusion that we really should have had a Super Mario World movie instead of a Galaxy movie, with Galaxy being the third in a trilogy. I, at first, was a little bit sold on the idea of jumping right to Galaxy, but after seeing it specifically in regards to Yoshi, nah, they needed it in between. A Super Mario World movie that focused on introducing Yoshi, establishing an arc for him, and digging deeper into the other characters before we expanded into the galaxy would have been a better choice narratively. I think that the people behind the movies were just a bit too eager to get to the scale of Galaxy, and it was all the worse for it. Chapter 3. Peach. Narratively, Peach is the protagonist of the movie. She's the character who changes the most, which isn't saying much, and she is also the character who answers the call to action, since she's the one who at first flies into the galaxy to go save Rosalina. I've seen some people say that Peach has a character arc, but I don't think she does. Peach is established to be someone who is struggling with her own sense of identity. This is shown in a scene between her and Mario on top of the castle during her birthday party, where she says that it isn't her actual birthday. It's just the day that the Toads found her, and she doesn't know her actual birthday. And Mario replies with, "That must be hard," which, I don't know. I found it to be kind of a weak dialogue exchange. Like, really? That's all you have to say? That must be hard? Kind of speaks to how much of a blank slate these characters are. Since they don't really have much going on below the surface, the dialogue they say doesn't really resonate and is reduced to meaningless platitudes like, "That must be hard." After Peach finds a Luma that tells her she needs to rescue Rosalina, she goes off into the galaxy, leaving Mario and Luigi behind. I'm not sure if people didn't like this choice, as I could see a criticism being, why didn't she take Mario and Luigi? But I could defend the choice as it, 1, allows Peach to have her own part of the story, and 2, I can buy that she needed someone she could trust to run the kingdom while she goes off into space. And 3, having Mario and Luigi be in charge of the kingdom could give them an opportunity to engage with their own character flaws by showing how difficult it is to be in charge of the kingdom. I mean, they don't really do that with Mario and Luigi, but at least they could have. The sense of lacking an identity that was set up in the beginning doesn't really come to fruition. In fact, I don't think it's really meaningfully brought up again. Peach just kind of goes through the motions of an adventure. She fights Wart in the casino, she meets Star Fox, meets up with Mario, they go to the Bowser planet, she finds Rosalina, and is just like, wait, I'm a magic girl, and they use their super special Chosen One powers to blow up the thing, and then the movie just sort of ends. It's pretty obvious what Peach as a character is missing, a character flaw. Since Peach is framed as the protagonist of the movie, she should have to overcome a negative perspective that she holds, and all of the story beats, like fighting Wart, like fighting Bowser, like saving Rosalina, should all be narrative extensions of overcoming that negative perspective. Sure, Peach feels bad about not knowing where she came from, but that on its own is not a character flaw. Perhaps the movie should have portrayed Peach as someone who resents being the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, that she feels like she should have been someone else. That whoever she was before she was Princess Peach of the Mushroom Kingdom is who she thinks she should be, and by going on this adventure, the narrative could criticize her for abandoning the Toad she is sworn to protect. And by reuniting with Rosalina and seeing that Rosalina is also this princess leader, being the leader of the Lumas, she realizes that she is destined to be a leader, and she accepts who she is as Princess of the Mushroom Kingdom. That's a perfect story right there. Peach still finds that piece of her identity that she is missing, but she also overcomes the negative perspective that she holds. This foundational character arc would have made all of the action sequences Peach is involved in much more meaningful. While she's fighting Wart and the Super Mario Bros. 2 crew as it stands, it's just a bunch of action for the sake of having action and some character cameos. But if she was established to have this character flaw, we would be more invested in her succeeding in this fight, because her succeeding in this fight would directly lead to her completing said character arc. The action sequences as they stand look super cool, and they would not have had to be changed one iota. All that would have needed to change was an actual character motivation, and all of these action sequences would have hit a lot harder. Chapter 4. Bowser and Bowser Jr. Bowser is all over the place in this movie. I get what they were going for. He's struggling with his own identity. Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Is he truly rehabilitated, or is he just faking it so he can escape? Look, it's fine if Bowser himself isn't sure about this. Characters who go back and forth in terms of their own morality are compelling characters. But what is not fine is that the movie doesn't seem sure about this. Like the first scene with Bowser, you know, the one that was in all the trailers where Mario says his painting is trash. This scene pretty unambiguously communicates that Bowser has no interest in rehabilitation, that he is 100% a mustache-twirling evil entity that only acts like he's changed in order to make the heroes let their guard down. I mean, he's literally painting a skeleton Mario. And look, this could have been fine as an establishing foundation for the character, because the main thing that changes after the castle gets destroyed and dropped on the Honeybee planet, and Tiny Bowser travels with Mario and Luigi and Yoshi, is that Bowser is made aware that Bowser Jr. is looking for him. This seemed like it was setting up a turning point for Bowser, with him even acknowledging that he wasn't a good father to Jr. Then there's a moment where Bowser goads Mario into hitting him, which reverses the effects of the mini mushroom and turns him big again. Side note, this is completely game inaccurate, as you don't turn big again after getting hit with a mini mushroom. You only can negate the effects of a mini mushroom by getting another power-up, but the first movie got that wrong too, so whatever. Anyway, game inaccuracy aside, when Bowser gets big again, he actually does keep his word and travels with Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi. While this could have been a cool group, they're really only together for like one scene, where Bowser gives himself up to the Honey Queen in exchange for Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi being able to go find Peach. It seemed like, at this point in the movie, Bowser has redeemed himself by allowing himself to be imprisoned in the Honey Mines, but then he gets abducted by Bowser Jr., and here's where things get messy. So I'm not sure if the narrative is trying to communicate that Bowser knew that Jr. would find him, and his acting like he's changed and sacrificing himself to the Honey Queen is just a false surrender, or if he genuinely wanted to change and Jr. finding him was something he wasn't expecting. Either of these options would have worked. But the problem is that the narrative does not communicate which one it is. I really think that we should just get a little bit more insight into what Bowser is thinking and what his motivations are. Look, it would be one thing if it were subtextual and you would have to read between the lines to figure out what his motivations are. But it doesn't even do that. It just straight up does not indicate anything at all. It all just kind of happens, and whatever Bowser is trying to do is just whatever he tries to do in that moment. Then, when Bowser and Bowser Jr. meet up, there is a little bit of hesitation on Bowser's part, which I do think is compelling, like how he convinces Bowser Jr. to not kill Mario and Luigi. But then later on, he's like all in on the Boomsday device. And look, this all could have been good writing. It could have been that Bowser was trying to change, but then he got all swept up in the moment and wanting his son to love him, and that makes him make the wrong decisions. But again, the narrative does not communicate this. The closest the narrative gets to communicating this is a scene where Bowser goes up in front of a whole crowd of his minions who are all cheering for him, and that seems to be kind of the turning point where he straight up chooses evil. Again, it's just not properly communicating what Bowser feels and what kind of redemption/corruption arc he's going through at the moment. But what about Bowser Jr.? So there's a lot of compelling stuff with Bowser Jr. that I don't think is properly expanded upon. The most interesting part of Bowser Jr.'s character is the childishness of evil that he portrays. His dad raised him with all these evil ideas, like the Boomsday device and all that, and because Bowser himself was kind of a deadbeat otherwise, Jr. not only was filled with such evil ideas, but also was so desperate to impress his dad that he implemented those evil ideas a little bit haphazardly. The Bowser Jr. relationship could have been an interesting case study of a father who once believed evil things, teaching his son said evil things, but then when that father learns that evil is not the right way, the son, who holds the evil perspectives the father once held, now tempts that father to pursue evil again. That's a really interesting dynamic that is totally present, but not expanded upon. There's so many elements of this story in the Bowser Jr. relationship, but they don't really dive deep into it. It's all just a missed opportunity. I do think that Bowser and Bowser Jr.'s defeat was done really well. The strongest moments in the entire movie for me are, one, the bridge scene where Bowser is given one last chance to change, which he rejects, leading to the classic cutting the bridge and dropping Bowser into the lava, and two, the end of the final fight between Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi versus Dry Bowser and Bowser Jr., where Bowser Jr. creates the dragon from Mario Odyssey with his paintbrush, and that dragon then immediately tries to eat Jr. A great example of how evil ambition will eventually literally story eat itself. While these moments were strong, they would have been all the more stronger if the narrative had consistently communicated the respective arcs and motivations of Bowser and Bowser Jr. Chapter 5. Mario and Luigi. Mario was barely a character in this movie. It actually baffles me how little the title character did throughout the runtime. I could tell that they were trying to make up for the fact that Luigi was separated from Mario for so much of the first movie by having the brothers be together for so much of the second, but if you don't have them do anything, what does it even matter? I actually don't think it's that bad that Luigi acts mostly as a sidekick/confidant throughout the film. For one, Luigi was the character who had the most of an arc in the first movie in him learning to be braver, so by having him be more competent in the second movie, and being the one to give Mario advice on being brave in regards to Mario being nervous about his crush on Peach, is actually a pretty good role for him. However, since Mario himself has no character arc, Luigi's support for him falls kind of flat. There were a few moments where I had a glimmer of hope that Mario was going to be more than a blank slate in this movie. The first was when Peach left him in charge of the kingdom, and there's this montage of Mario and Luigi going around helping people around the Mushroom Kingdom. I feel like this sequence was going to set up some sort of character arc revolving around Mario learning to embrace a big responsibility that was left on him. But other than a moment where Mario and Luigi were like, "I'm tired," it didn't really lean into that. Another missed opportunity for Mario was in his attitude towards Bowser's rehabilitation. I can't tell what position the movie was trying to take in regards to if Bowser could be rehabilitated. Like, it seems like Mario and Luigi have opposing perspectives on the matter, with Mario thinking Bowser could never change and should be locked up for good, and Luigi who thinks that Bowser should get a second chance. There is so much that the movie could have done with this. It could have had Mario be portrayed as someone who was too hard on Bowser, and him being too hard on Bowser could have led to issues once Bowser got let loose. In the aforementioned moment where Mario hits Bowser, which causes Bowser to lose his mini mushroom status, there is such a missed opportunity to have this be a moment of weakness from Mario. A time where the hero does something not heroic and has to pay for it later. But no, it's just kind of brushed off. Similar to Peach, the fact that Mario is such a blank slate makes the action sequences he is involved in fall flat. The narrative expects us to only root for Mario to succeed because he's the main character, when it hasn't done the work earning us caring about Mario succeeding. And for the most part, perhaps they are correct. People love Mario because he's the star of so many of their favorite games, so they are inclined to root for him in a movie for that reason alone. But I think that's a poor excuse for not having the character that your movie is literally named after have no character arc whatsoever. Chapter 6. Why must it be this way? So, you might have enjoyed the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And guess what? I enjoyed it too. I know, that might sound surprising considering I've been complaining about it for about 20 minutes so far, but it's true. I enjoyed the movie. And I bet that the reason that you enjoyed the movie are the same reasons that I enjoyed the movie. The visuals, seeing the Mario universe put to screen, certain elements of the humor, and yes, even a couple decent character moments here and there. All of these things made this a solid movie-going experience. And as I go into my final thoughts about what is wrong with this movie, I want you to keep in mind that everything that I would change about this movie would not change the things that you liked about it. If you're gonna argue, well, the movie was fun, okay, it would still be fun if it had character arcs. It would still be fun if it had themes. It would still be fun if it had an actual story. In fact, it would be more fun if it had those things, because those fun moments would have elicited a stronger emotional response. But beyond fun, there are bigger reasons why this movie, and many other movies, should feel obligated to include character arcs, themes, and a story. The arts are an important method of communicating perspectives. We learned so much about morality, about social interaction, about our own inner desires, by seeing those things reflected on the big screen. And when a popular movie outright ignores engaging with those things, I think that leads to negative social consequences. This movie is going to be something that will be a foundational memory for many, many children. And because of that, the filmmakers had an opportunity to give those children a positive outlook on identity through Princess Peach, on what it means to make the wrong choices through Bowser Jr., on what it means to have responsibility and be a hero through Mario. But because the filmmakers just chose not to do those things, we've now lost out on all of the social good that could have provided. I'm not here to try to convince you to hate this movie or to feel sour about your movie theater going experience. But what I am here to argue is that there is something missing from this movie, and what it's missing is important. And if you disagree with that, then you are going to have to argue as to why it is socially beneficial for some movies to just not expand people's minds. I really don't understand why anyone would ever hold that position. So, why did this happen? Why can't the movie have the things that I described in my criticisms? You might be thinking the answer is money, right? But that doesn't really add up if you think about it. If for some reason, Nintendo and Illumination decided to call me up once they finished the final draft of the script and say, "Hey, Jackson, can you do a rewrite for us?" It would have taken me, I think, 16 hours to edit the script in a way that it had all of the things that I think should be required of any piece of narrative media. That's about 2 full workdays for one writer who happens to know this stuff. Probably would have cost them less than Donald Glover saying Yoshi like 4 times. One possibility for why this may have happened is the restrictions imposed by Nintendo. When working with these incredibly valuable video game corporate entities, just about everything they do is incredibly scrutinized by multiple boardrooms of stuffy suits. Look, I'm not a big Miyamoto blamer, I have a lot of respect for the guy, but it's no secret the dude is not a fan of stories. For example, the aforementioned Rosalina storybook from the original Mario Galaxy game, that is absent from the movie, was something that Miyamoto did not want to include in the game, and other developers actually were the ones who had to push to get it added in. I don't personally know the man, but from what I've seen, the guy is someone who prioritizes pure, unadulterated fun without the need for story. And this philosophy, for the most part, works for video games, because video games don't need to tell stories, since you, as the player, experience it live. So your experience as the player is the story. And also, in a video game, having too much story can get in the way of the game being fun, because the game can get so bogged down with cutscenes that the player doesn't engage as much with the gameplay. Whereas in the medium of film, the entire viewer experience is just watching things happen on the screen. So having a meaningful story can't take away from the viewer experience. It can only add to it. The reason I think that the movie is like this is that these things just aren't considered by the powers that be behind this movie. Like, I don't think a lot of this writing stuff is that hard, and I feel like if you're a professional writer who's at the point where you're writing a movie that's being produced by a big studio, I feel like you should know this stuff, but maybe it's just not that common. Maybe the actual understanding of what it means to tell a good story just is kind of rare. And maybe because movies can make a lot of money without having that sort of stuff, people aren't really incentivized to care about that when they learn how to write. While I think this logic makes sense, I do think it's a little misguided for a couple of reasons. One, I do think that it's the responsibility of artists to consider the social good that the arts can provide and take advantage of their platform to spread a positive message. This belief of mine would probably fall on deaf ears should you say it to a shareholder, but I think any artist should agree with me on that. But something that I think both shareholders and artists alike should agree on is that movies that are shallow just don't stand the test of time. The only thing that props this movie up are the characters that we know from the video game franchise. But beyond that, there's nothing that truly stays with its audience. And I don't know, I think that something like the Mario movie franchise, because of how shallow it is, it's just not really gonna be remembered. And it really didn't have to be this way. With just a few key changes to how the characters act, with just a couple more lines to let us know their perspectives, it all could have been so much better. And I think we should all acknowledge, even if we really enjoyed the movie, that it's a real shame that it wasn't. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see some of my gaming related content, check out this video right here over on my gaming channel. Or if you want to see more videos on this channel, check out this video right here. If you like what I do and want to see me do more of it, consider joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member. See you next time.